Hello everyone, I'm going to be going over the Tier 8 Premium French Light Tank, the ELC Even 90, which it hasn't been released yet, but soon it will be hitting the live servers. Now, if it hasn't already, let me clarify that. But pretty much, what are you going to get out of this tank? There's a few videos out of it already, kind of going over kind of the quirkiness of it. It's a really small tank. Honestly, it's pretty much one of the lightest tanks, least armored tanks once you start getting up to the high tiers. Think the American Scorpion TD lightness, to where everything you're going to hit is going to cause a crap ton of damage to you, and the thing's just really small. So outside of it looking odd, is it actually a good tank? That's what I'm going to get to here in the comparison. I'm not able to play it since you pretty much can't play it outside of the Chinese server right now, but can at least go over the different stats of this tank and really help you kind of get an informed opinion whether or not it's actually worth buying. Otherwise, you know, feel free to blast away at them in matches. Now, stacking it up here against other tanks, I'm going to do the Batchat 12T. Also, the other recent Tier 8 Light Premium tank that was released, the T92, and also, moving forward, the Tier 7 AMX 1375, which is a tier lower than it. Now, starting off, comparing it against the Batchat 12T, 220 damage per shot compared to 170 for the ELC Even 90. However, there's only 3 rounds in its clip compared to 4 of the Batchat 12T. It does take 2.5 seconds to shoot in between shells in a magazine, compared to 2 on the Batchat, and the load time is much longer, nearly 30 seconds compared to 20 seconds on the Batchat. So more or less, the Alpha Strike, while you do cause 220 damage per shot, you only have 3 rounds compared to 4. And once you factor in that extra shell, the Batchat does 680 damage per magazine, and it also has basically 10 seconds shaved off of the reload time for each magazine. Only takes a half second longer to unload that magazine, and you only do 660 damage. So not only do you do less damage per magazine, you also have a longer reload. Now, the one upside you do have over the Batchat 12T is you do have 9 degrees of gun depression compared to -6, and your tank is really tiny. So if you are able to poke over any of the hills that for whatever reason enemies let you sit up there, because even though this tank is small, given the height of it, 9 degrees of gun depression, you're still going to be shot unless you position yourself very well, because you're not really able to utilize that gun depression because you're so low to the ground. But for whatever reason, if you can hold down in this and people can't hit you, that -3 degrees of gun depression will help you over the standard Batchat 12T. Now, moving on a little bit, aiming time is worse, accuracy is the same, but the biggest disaster stat of the ELC Even 90, even considering that your reload is longer, you know, you basically do more damage than the Batchat, but magazine wise you actually do less damage, given that you only have 3 rounds per magazine instead of 4. Your DPM is sitting at, with 100% crew, no equipment, no crew skills, 1152, which compared to the Batchat, almost 1600 there. T92 without a autoloader, low over 2000 on that. And then even the Tier 7 AMX 1375 has 1600, so nearly 500 more DPM than you have. Now, one other thing you do have I kind of skimmed over was penetration. 175 millimeters on the ELC Even 90 compared to 170. Your premium round also has an extra 5 millimeters of pen. So while it is better, it's not bad for a Tier 8 light. It is low for Tier 8s in general, because lights don't have that great penetration until you get to Tier 9. You know, penetration doesn't really... It doesn't really matter that you have a little bit more penetration, a little bit more damage per shot, and a little bit more gun depression compared to the Batchat 12T. to me, you know, it doesn't really matter too much because it's going to be hard to actually get those shots off, given that when you move down, only 900 HP, which is almost the same as the tier lower AMX 1375. Pretty much 900 HP at tier 8. You're going to get one-shotted by a lot of things. Artillery is going to wreck you. And, you know, a lot of guns even do like 750 damage, so you're pretty much two-shottable by most tanks that you come across, if not three-shottable. And with only 1152 base DPM, it's going to be hard for you to deal damage. Now, one thing you do have to keep in mind is moving down further here, it is a light tank, and it is really small, so maybe it's a better scout than these other tanks. It only weighs 6.7 tons, which is just a drop in a bucket, nearly half of what the Batchat 12T weighs, and once you start looking, compared to even other tier 8 lights, the thing doesn't really weigh anything. Engine power, though, is only 160 horsepower, giving it a pretty bad specific power. So with a low specific power here, it's still going to be pretty fast, like 23.88 for specific power before you factor in like ground resistance, which it doesn't have terrible ground resistance values compared to the other lights. You know, they're all about even. It still moves pretty fast. However, going up hills and turning, it will bleed a little bit of speed there. And overall, you know, you do kind of notice the specific power being a little bit lower, especially when you're accelerating. But the mobility still is fairly good. And also when you factor in the small size, it's pretty hard to hit. Top speed is a little bit higher than, you know, the other tier 8 and even the 7 lights I have up here. Traverse speed, a little bit lower than the T92, but overall the traverse speed is fairly good across all these lights. Now concealment, this is kind of the main strength of the ELC Even 90. You don't really have a good gun, you don't really have the hit points behind your tank, nor the armor, but you do have a little bit of mobility, and you have a lot of concealment. So the base 100% stat for the ELC Even 90, this is before factoring in paint. Basically, if you could put a camo net on this and become virtually impossible to spot, crew skills, you know, vents, stuff like that. 22.12 22.12 here for the concealment. After you fire, you know, it does drop a lot. However, you basically have the best camouflage for any light tank around your tier. Even better than the T92, which, you know, compared to the Batchat 12T doesn't look too good here with any crew skills. However, you know, it is fairly good in the overall theme of things, where you're going to be a very small tank moving around, and once you start adding crew skills and stuff on, you can get that concealment bonus well above 40%. So it's going to be pretty darn difficult for things to spot you. Now, one thing to keep in mind is view range 380 is less than, say, the T92 that has 400. Overall, tier 8 light, it's pretty much towards the bottom as far as view range for tier 8 lights go. However, the camouflage does make up a little bit of that. Now, getting back to the ELC Even here. Now, looking at the standard Batchat 12T, just noticing the size where this is a little bit larger than other tier 8 lights. However, going over to the Even, the thing is, you know, it's a miniature tank basically for tier 8s. You're not really going to find many other tanks that are smaller than it once you start getting above tier 5. Looking at, if I can find here somewhat in a timely matter, the Scorpion here at tier 7, adding that into the mix, you know, it's similar in size to the M56 Scorpion, which is already one of the, you know, if not the smallest tank at high tiers currently in the game. The ELC hasn't been released yet, to where it's pretty much smaller than that, to where, albeit the gun is pretty bad for tier 8 light, you're not going to be able to kill many things, given that your gun, you know, doing 660 damage every 30 plus seconds. It will, get a little bit down once you start adding crew skills and stuff on. You're not going to be able to kill many things. It's kind of like an opportunistic tank where you're going to be spotting for your team and, kind of zooming around, and people aren't going to be able to spot you once you get your crew skills up. However, without that camouflage bonus and, having your crew with that camouflage bonus, it's a pretty bad tank. Honestly, the most damning thing about it is currently you have the T92. I didn't add on the M41, what people call the Black Dog, with the 90mm. That just wipes the floor with it because that's pretty much the best tier 8 light in the game. The thing that, damns the ELC Even 90 is the gun is so bad. You don't have DPM, you have less damage per, magazine than the Batchat 12T, and even comparing it against the AMX 1375, you have less DPM, same accuracy, aiming time is worse, reload time is worse, of course. Gun depression is better, and the penetration for going up a tier is better as well. But more or less, ELC Even, it feels like it's lacking a little bit in the firepower department. However, it is going to be a really annoying tank to face when you're trying to spot the damn thing. Given the camouflage and also the size, it is going to be a really annoying tank to face off against. When you're on a open map that it can actually zoom around on fields, hide bushes and stuff, you're not going to see it unless it's shooting at you, or basically you're within proxy spot range. Especially if it has a camo net or hides behind a bush, you're not going to be able to see the thing. That's really the strength of the tank, but overall, is it worth picking it up in its current state? I don't think so. It would either be better moving down a tier, to tier 7, or given the 30-second reload per magazine, if they gave it one more shot maybe, or just reduce the reload time just a hair. I wouldn't say give it the same as the Batchat and take a full 10 seconds off. Maybe shave like about 4 seconds off of it. It would be a much better tank. In the current state though, it's a really good scout. It's really tiny, and it's probably going to be hilarious to play. However, at the same time, if you're not able to spot, and say you get a city map like Ensk, Himmelsdorf, really any map where there's not a lot of spotting opportunities, it's gonna feel like you're gimping your team out of a tier 8 because the firepower just doesn't add up on this thing. And especially against higher tiers, you're not going to be able to do anything against tier 9s, tier 10s outside of spot for your team. So unless you really like spotting, I personally would say stay away from this tank. It's going to be pretty frustrating to play if you actually need to kill things, albeit it still can damage things. It's just you're putting yourself in a position where it is worse at dealing damage and actually performing a lot of the duties that you want to be able to in a team fight. You can scout, you can get around the map pretty well, and you are small, so it's going to be hard to hit you. But unless you can kill tanks, you can't always say cap out and spot every battle to the best of your ability. So while this is an interesting tank, the ELC Even 90, I would probably say it's not the best tank to pick up unless Wargaming rebalances it, whether it's moving it down to tier like some people suggest it, or like I suggest just slightly giving the gun a little bit more oomph behind it, reducing that reload a little bit. It's definitely a tank that, it's a novelty. If you like picking up tanks like it, go ahead. But if you're looking for a tank that performs very well, you're better off kind of looking somewhere else. Whether it's a T92 light or if the M41 90mm pops back up, those are better tier 8 light options. Unfortunately for France, when it comes to light tank crew trainers, you're gonna have this as an option, but it's gonna be hard to pick up the AMX 57mm, which is a blast to play a tier lower, unless that comes back up for sale. This is really the options that you're stuck with. Hopefully they rebalance this a little bit, but it'll definitely be interesting to see how this works out in high tier battles when nobody can spot the damn thing. But anyway, thank you very much for watching this video. Hopefully this helped you get a little bit better view of the ELC Even 90, since it should be coming out somewhat soon as a premium tank. on your server. So thanks again for watching. Have a very nice day, and I hope to see you again on another video sometime soon. See ya.